have as many conversations as you can and get used to having as many conversations as you can. Because the sooner you can get into that space and that mindset and really talk about what you're going to do, it helps you develop what you're going to do. It helps you to think it out, think it out loud with other people, get good feedback, but it also lets people know who you are and what you're doing so that they can remember you, participate with you, tell others about you. And I think that that's, the sooner you can get to that space, the better off you'll be, because a lot of times you get caught up in the building part and you think if I just build it, they'll come. And that doesn't really resonate, but maybe for some, but by and large, most people, you have to do the legwork.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, a serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we are always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Sharon Melendez. And Sharon started her journey, graduated from high school, went off and got a degree and ended up getting a master's degree in a nonprofit management. I think also went into accounting out of college. And then from there went into banking, focusing on helping people with business development, and then focused more specifically on business growth for nonprofits. Afterwards, decided to focus on her own thing and doing fractional services as well as running a few nonprofits of her own. So, with that much as a introduction, welcome on the podcast, Sharon.
Thank you for having me so much.
Absolutely excited to have you on. So I gave a quick one run through to a much longer journey. So why don't we rewind and unpack that a little bit and tell us a little bit more about your journey coming out of high school and deciding to go in and study and get some degrees.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very entrepreneurial minded, and I think that that sort of always resonated since I was a kid. Working since I was 9, always trying to find a way to make a buck. But so out of high school, went off to college and really juggled around between the heartstrings and the math mind. And so I wanted to either major in accounting or major in psychology, which vastly different degrees. So I ended up majoring in psychology and minoring in accounting. But
So
I thought at first I was going to be a career counselor in the state penitentiary. But if I got married, I would be an accountant. So I went the get married route and went accounting route and have used my psychology degree throughout my career. It's been very helpful.
awesome. So you come out of school and you're saying, okay, gonna maybe work at a penitentiary, or maybe not quite as it conducive if you go down or you get married and start a family. So you kind of go down the route of more into accounting. So kind of where after graduating, where did the journey pick up, or where did that start out at for you?
Yeah, so I worked a lot in banking before, during college, and I worked for a major cadmium company, and we sold zinc and cadmium. And so I did logistics for them and accounting. I worked in the accounting department. And so I learned a lot about how to develop a business, how to grow in your business, and from that job itself. And I think that that just sort of spawned people asking me questions and me sort of kind of brainstorming how to figure out how to solve their problem. And that kind of just landed into one role after the next, where I ended up just naturally falling into that fractional space before it was called fractional.
Hmm.
And then it sort of led me from one career position to another and helping out a lot of nonprofits, small businesses, and that just sort of became a passion for me. So,
So now, so you started out, so you know, kind of, it sounds like putting words in your mouth, but definitely correct me if I'm wrong, you know, starting kind of going down I'll say in quotes, I don't know if there is such a thing as traditional route for doing accounting. And then what kind of maybe lent you to or made you gravitate more towards, you know, kind of that nonprofit or kind of helping out, you know, those type of businesses.
Yeah, I think for me, growing up in the church and doing a lot of volunteer work and missionary home, I kind of have that mindset as it is for giving and serving. And so, and it's always it's the little guy and it investing in communities and investing in, you know, global issues. And I just always wanted to help people. And that was sort of maybe that was geared from my emotional degree that I wanted for the psychology piece. There's always a heartstring, but there's a reality, and numbers are a beautiful thing that you can pair the two very well. And I think that sort of just lent itself to being a really good, full encompassing business strategist for me, in that I can work with people on finding financial breakdowns, but I can also work with them on their people side and the human capital, and the element of putting those two pieces together, I think has been really a sweet spot for me.
Hmm. So now, so you started kind of going down that route. Okay, you're working kind of in the banking industry, and if I remember, kind of when we chatted before, started kind of helping people with business development before more shifting towards nonprofit. Now, kind of walk us through, was that over the space of working for one business, multiple businesses, over what period of time? Kind of help us fill in a bit of those details.
Yeah, so always had a full-time job, but always working side work where as needed. And I feel like that just kind of been that land that I've lived in, where I think that the side work has really helped me in fully developing who I am, what I do, what I offer, what I bring to the table. Sometimes it's questions that you know, for whatever you can't solve them, but you have to go and learn and figure it out. And so I think that that's just, I'm a learner. I like a continuous learner. And I think that that's a valuable asset as well, because I think you always have to be learning and growing. And there's just so many different problems to solve. But I don't know. I was trying to think back because you were asking me about a question you'll ask me later, but I was thinking through um, in my one of my earlier jobs, the one for the metal company. One of the things that we had was a major audit, and there was this dollar amount that nobody could find, and the auditors couldn't find it. And I remember being willing to work late into the night, and it was kind of like finding that, you know, solving the puzzle. And once I found it, it was so exciting and exhilarating. And I think that that's always been the driver for me, is solving people's unmet problems that they, you know, and then realizing that there's way more underneath the surface. And the more you dig, the more you learn, the more you find, then the more you can break open things for people. And it just helps businesses significantly to have clarity of gaps and issues that they have in their business. And I don't know, I find that exciting, but I think that that works in all circles.
That makes perfect sense. So you started, or so you went down that, you were working, if I understand it, or for, you know, other industries or in the banking industry, working for others. Now, kind of over what period of time as you're making that evolution, kind of figuring out who you were going to focus on, the people you wanted to, you know, kind of serve long term, kind of walk through kind of what period of time was that over and kind of how many businesses?
Yeah, so roughly I would say, golly, probably 30 or 40 businesses earlier in my career. So maybe over a span of 15, 20 years. Um, Obviously, I had kids. I homeschooled my children. And so a lot of these opportunities were you could work from home, or you could, you know, go into their business once a week. And that lent itself to just being able to flow in clients over time. while I'm working my main job. And I just, opportunities sort of came to me. I didn't really have to go looking for them. And that was really great early on. Not the same anymore, but definitely it was a lot of fun. But I think for me, I've probably helped over 100 businesses over the span of 30 years. And I've just really enjoyed, they've ranged from anywhere from, solopreneurs to um, multi-million dollar global industry. It's really just been a variety of folks, but everybody's got the same problem.
Now,
Can't
just
figure it out,
to kind
need
of
to grow.
yeah, no, and to follow up on that, so I mean, so you started out, you were working full-time jobs, and it kind of sounds like some of these opportunities came, here or there, so to speak. Now, how did you, or did you, or how did you transfer or transition over to kind of doing this as your main time focus, or otherwise kind of going down the more entrepreneurial route or setting up your own business route?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've been really thinking about that a lot this past year as I've been sort of really transitioning into full-time doing fractional work. One of the things that I have noticed as a commonality over the years is that I go in, I fix a problem, I build it better, I then hire people to come in and work it at an efficient level, maybe less expensive, and then you kind of work yourself out of a job and then you go to your next one. So I found myself doing that a little bit more in the last decade, and I started to realize that that's not a bad thing, and it really is actually a huge benefit. And then sometimes I would start out as maybe a fractional person, and then they were like, we really want you to come in and work for us full time. And so you do that, but the agreement is when they don't need it anymore because I generally the older you are, the higher up you go, the more expensive you are. And so I get it. That's a reality. And a lot of small businesses, they can't afford that or sustain that for a long period of time, but they can really utilize the best of you for the period that they have you. And so I think that just sort of is a natural gift that I have. And I would like to maximize that for as many businesses as I can.
No, that makes perfect sense. So you kind of set that up. That became your main time focus. You said you kind of made that kind of the main focus about a year ago. Is that correct?
Yeah, I really just kind of decided that it's probably time to just own that and go for it and just see what happens.
So now, as you make that kind of leap or jump, sometimes people get into it and they say, "Hey, I love this, and I wish I'd been doing it earlier." And it, gives me ability to kind of set my own, own clients or my own direction. And it's a great opportunity. And other times people get into it and says, "Man, I wish I just stayed." But having someone else manage the business side, do a lot of the accounting and doing all the other odd jobs, and I can just focus on kind of servicing people. So I, kind of get it going both ways. So kind of as you jumped in, made that leap and have been doing it for about a year, kind of how has that gone? Has it been something that you found that you enjoyed or wish, or given the choice to do over again, you go in a different direction or kind of maybe walk us through that a bit?
Yeah, I think for me in the beginning, I bucked at it. I was really more or less, I would rather somebody else find the clients and I could just service them. But then the more I started to really own the space and the mindset about it, I realized that if I don't do that initial part, that relationship building, then it makes it more challenging to service a client because what you're doing is you're establishing that relationship that can grow and develop long term. And that's a missed opportunity in my space. And so I think that I had to shift my own mindset to go, adopt it and accept it. It's a part of the process. And while it's a grind and
Hmm.
it takes a long time, I realize that there's really great benefit to it in the long term with the trust factor. So I'm embracing it now.
Well, sounds like a good place to be. And, it's kind of one of those that sometimes, it takes a period of time as you get used to it, as you become more comfortable with it. And also, just kind of figuring things out at the time, the battle is kind of figuring out what is going to be the actual focus and kind of how you're going to approach that and how you find the clients and how you service them and get the business also. It sounds like it's been that evolution. So now that you've been in business for kind of this last year, if you're to now kind of do a bit of forward looking or kind of see where things are headed or kind of what are those next steps, looking out to the next, 6 to 12 months, kind of looking at where things might be headed or what's kind of next in store for you, kind of where do you see things going for you or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think for me, it's finding those right partnerships because there is, while you can do it independently, you can also partner with other people and work with smaller boutique firms or even larger firms and just sort of balance that flow. But I think because you really want to, again, maximize potential, help as many people as you can, and the economy that we're in right now and the flux that everybody's in, especially the nonprofit sector and small business owners, I think that it's a really good opportunity for someone like me to partner well with people and see how many people I can, aid and assist. At least getting, especially like tax season and thinking about end of year goals in 2026 and what does that look like. And so a lot of people aren't, how to put it this, when you're looking at your budget and it's the first quarter and you're really starting to think this isn't panning out like I thought it was going to at the end of the
Mm.
year. And how do I make those tiny or big shifts for second and third quarter to really end the year well? And so I think for me, I'm working on those same practices for myself. I want to help businesses simultaneously to be able to do the same thing. And I think that that's the timing of it, trying to get clients at this space is really beneficial because you want people to end the year well and you want to be able to help them with those little shifts.
No, that makes perfect sense and sounds like it'll be a good direction. Now, maybe, not necessarily exactly what you'd hit on, but you mentioned kind of a shift in evolution. So, it seems like, just kind of a side note, people are tending to shift potentially towards, um, doing more or either going in the providing fractional services and or looking for people that maybe especially if you're startup or small business to get those fractional services sometimes for when you can't afford to do to hire someone full time or otherwise have them on staff. So kind of as you've built out the business or kind of gone in that direction and done some of that fractional work, has it been something that has been a great niche and well received, or is it something that you have to provide more education or help people to understand the benefits, or kind of how have you found that to be received?
Yeah, I think anytime you think about hiring a finance or operations person, both of those spaces, small to mid-sized business owners, they looked at that as a luxury, right? And they've been probably doing their own finances or they've been, leading their own teams and they maybe had small, like two or three, employees. And so when you start to really think about as you're growing, that growing need for someone like me, unfortunately, a lot of times business owners execute on that a little late in the game.
Mm.
And so there is a huge negative when you're walking in. So you almost have to solve a larger problem for them that ends up costing them more time, energy, and effort. And so part of what I do is educate business owners on the forefront. Like, let's get in there and get busy doing these things and really setting up good processes and procedures and managing your data well, because people don't think about the inputs of your data and how much value add you can get in being able to extract that data. And so it helps you with your tracking, it helps you with your budgeting, it helps you with your marketing. And people just don't think about all of those components. And so really trying to be on the forefront of educating the same time as grabbing those people at that spot where, oh my goodness sakes, I wish I'd hired her 5 years ago. And what do I do now? Or, everybody in between. I think so. I'm thinking the all encompassing how I do my business is how I run my business. It's how I think about my business. And I think it's really important to get people at all the different avenues and help them as best I can, because sometimes it's just having a really tough conversation. And other times it's what can I do? And then how can we, really strategize together quickly and efficiently so you can hire the right people you need at the pace that you can afford.
No, I think that makes perfect sense, and sounds like it's a good option that sometimes people may not always realize directly offhand, and yet presents a lot of great opportunities, both on to build a business around and to provide the service as well as utilize it for your business. So on both ends, sounds like it's a good area to be in. Well, now as we do kind of wrap towards, or as we've kind of reached the present day of the journey, and even looking a bit into where things are headed, it's always a great time to transition to the two questions that you kind of alluded to a little bit that I always like to wrap up each episode with. So the first question I like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? And what'd you learn from it?
Yeah, so I really had a tough time with that question, but because I will reframe it, because I don't think of things as worst business decisions, but I do think there are things that maybe something would have had a different outcome. And looking back to that first real job that I thought was a really amazing job, I might have, had I not left it as early as I did, and it was by my choosing, it was a different time in my life and I shifted a different direction. And I often wonder, if I hadn't, what would my career look like today? And I think it would have definitely been different, but because it also meant that I changed my major and a bunch of other things. So it was kind of fascinating. But I think that I've learned, what I did learn is you have to own your choices, and good or bad or indifferent. I think that I am a well-rounded individual simply because of the choices that I did make. And I've been able to help so many people in so many different facets of their business, not just in accounting. And I think that probably it makes me more effective.
No, makes perfect sense, and sounds like a good thing to learn from. Second question now that I'd like to ask is, so now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one rule of thumb that you'd recommend?
Well, I would say have as many conversations as you can and get used to having as many conversations as you can. Because the sooner you can get into that space and that mindset and really talk about what you're going to do, it helps you develop what you're going to do. It helps you to think it out, think it out loud with other people, get good feedback, but it also lets people know who you are and what you're doing so that they can remember you, participate with you, tell others about you. And I think that's, the sooner you can get to that space, the better off you'll be, because a lot of times you get caught up in the building part and you think, if I just build it, they'll come. And that doesn't really resonate, but maybe for some, but by and large, most people, you have to do the legwork.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think that's a great rule of thumb, and definitely a great takeaway on that. So now, as we kind of do wrap towards the end of the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn at Sharon Melendez, and they can also find me at Sharon at partnerallies.com. And the website for Partner Allies is coming soon.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, or expand their network, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. So So with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners that are out there, and if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. Just go to inventiveunicorn.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners. Make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And along that note, if along your journey you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we are always here to help. Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you so much, Devin.